There's an old Peanuts cartoon that has Lucy chasing Charlie Brown all around the house, yelling, "I'm going to get you, Charlie Brown. I'm going to get you, Charlie Brown." Suddenly, Charlie stops, turns to Lucy, and says in his serious voice, "If we who are children can't forgive each other, then how can we expect adults to forgive each other? And if adults forgive each other, then the world." And with that, Lucy punches him and knocks him down. Lucy says to another character, "I had to hit him. He was beginning to make sense." Forgiveness or reconciliation is the theme of this, the fourth Sunday of Lent. And in this cycle of readings, we hear of the story of the prodigal son. And it's read to remind us of at least two things. One is we are always invited by the Lord to be forgiven and to come home. And secondly, we are challenged to imitate the Lord's willingness to forgive by offering forgiveness to others. Let's look at each in turn. While it may seem obvious to you that God is always willing to forgive, it's far from obvious for some people. The story of the prodigal son is first and foremost a story of a forgiving father. According to the custom of the day, the son could receive from the father his share of the inheritance. But when he received the gift, he wasn't supposed to spend it until the father died, because the father might need it in his old age. And as we know from the story, the son spent all of the father's money and became so desperate that he was willing to go home and be treated as a servant. And if the father had disowned him and treated him as a servant, no one in that culture would have been shocked. That's what the son deserved. But as we know, the father welcomes in him with open arms and throws a party. The same is true for you and me. We sin, sometimes grievously. We turn away from God and sometimes feel that it's impossible to get things right again. We might even still come to church, but inside we feel alienated and really not worthy of God's love and forgiveness. Today, on this fourth Sunday of Lent, we receive the invitation to see how powerful God's love is for us. It's an invitation to be reconciled through our observance of Lent and perhaps by celebrating the sacrament of reconciliation before Easter. The other aspect of today's gospel is the expectation that we are ready and willing to offer forgiveness and reconciliation to others, just as the Father did. Remember, the older son could not or did not imitate the generosity of the Father. He was angry and not willing to forgive. It must not be thus with us. We have seen the generosity of the forgiving Father who represents God, and we need to do the best that we can in our lives to imitate that generosity towards others. To be sure, we might well be justified in our anger. Perhaps someone has really hurt us, physically or psychologically or otherwise. Forgiveness is not a justification or invitation for continued violence. It is, however, the ability I have to take control of the situation and not allow my understandable feelings to control who I am. Not to forgive is to allow the perpetrator of my hurt to continue to have control over my life. So as we continue our Lenten journey, we are invited to do these two things. Recall and embrace the ever-willingness of the Lord to forgive, and then to ask for the grace of God to imitate that generosity in our own relationships. Lent is over half over, and yet we still have time to forgive.